Afternoon, everyone. My name's Jack and I'm a vice president at HourWork. We got a couple of polls right at the beginning of this slide, or in the beginning of this deck, I should say, that for some reason made the person who was creating this think that we were going to have a very effective voting system, which I don't actually think we're going to have. But just quick show of hands before we get into the polls. How many folks here today are on the restaurant side of the business as opposed to vendor side? All right, most of the room. Okay, good. We're in good shape then. In today's session, we're going to cover three things for you. We're going to start with some restaurant trends and data, specifically around the quick service restaurant space, around labor, around people strategy. Try to help you better understand what's going on the people side of the business. Then we're going to talk a little bit about some wage predictions based on proprietary data we have access to help you understand where labor spend is going to be over the next 3, 6, and 12 months. And then last, we're going to leave you with a couple of concrete tips how to put all of this into action in your business today. And so I don't know how we're going to do this without a proper voting system. And so we got three options here. Quick show of hands. Option A, if you could pick one thing to level up your people strategy this year, who wants to understand data on why employees are quitting? Show of hands. Not a lot of people care why people quit. Okay. How many people want to know why people are sticking around? More. All right. Getting people to stay more seems to be more front of mind. That makes sense. Who wants to check in with their employees in a little bit more of an automated way so they don't have to do it themselves? We're talking about the table check-in earlier, not very scalable. Okay, a couple of folks. Good deal. Well, we're going to cover some of this stuff today, so you came to the right place. The session is for you if you could use an extra employee, maybe 5, in one of your restaurants. It's for you if you want to improve turnover, stop so many folks from leaving the restaurant, that revolving door that can be a big pain in people's behinds. Or 3, you just want to understand some of the trends, where you stand relative to everybody else. And we gathered this data by working with over 10,000 restaurants here across the United States. We've actually had over 3.2 million conversations with current restaurant employees via text message, both in the application process when they're currently working for our customers and the like. We conducted and audited over 80,000 exit surveys and sat down and had consultations with over 1,000 restaurant owners, much like the folks sitting in this room, to better understand what's going on and put together some of this data for you today to hopefully level up your people strategy. And let's face it, customers come to us for one of 6 reasons. Running a restaurant is difficult, particularly a quick service restaurant. I know some of these words are pretty small here on the screen, but overtime's going through the roof, especially when you got these folks coming in and out of your stores very, very quickly. Wages are going up. Managers are losing focus. They're running around like they've got chickens with their heads cut off. You know, it's hard to operate in this business, and the consequence of that is you're either losing half of your people in the first 90 days, an industry benchmark, or paying $1,000 to replace each one of those folks. And so it's not an easy business to operate in, which you don't need me to tell you, because you're in it every day. Well, let's get into some of the reasons why folks actually quit so we can figure out what to do to get them to stay longer. As I talked about before, we've conducted over 80,000 exit surveys. And with this information, we've analyzed what are the different reasons why people are leaving so we can help our customers get them to stay a little bit longer. And the 5 most common reasons: their manager, their schedule, their wage, the actual store environment itself, or their teammates. None of this is that surprising. I'm sure if I asked the room, why are people leaving, you would have said some of this stuff. But there's a couple of surprising things in this data that I want to point out that help people figure out what to do from here. And just to give you an example, we have a couple of examples of what a response is of somebody who's leaving because of their manager. These are actual employee responses. Again, they're kind of small on the screen. I'll just read one of them. But Top one here in the center. I told multiple managers that I had bad social anxiety and felt uncomfortable doing the drive-through. They still forced me to work that position, so I quit, right? Clearly talking about their manager as the reason that they left. Now, this happens a lot, right? We know that management's really important. But when I talk to restaurant owners, when I talk to folks like yourself, and I ask them, hey, why are most people leaving? What they say is pay. 25 cents, 50 cents, 75 cents more down the road. But what's interesting is that the manager comes up twice as often as the reason why people quit than anything else. And when you think about it, it kind of makes sense. Obviously, our managers are sitting there at the front lines. They're the first interface for each one of our employees about what their experience is going to be like. But by understanding that our managers have such a significant impact on our employees' ability to stay or continue to work in our space, we're able to come up with some stuff that we can do to actually move forward effectively. Now, the second tip or trend we're going to talk through is that the managers who check in make a big difference in your turnover numbers, and what employees say in one of those check-ins has a very strong correlation with their likelihood to stay working for you. Now, what do I mean by that? We find that when you check in with an employee and ask them, hey, how's everything going? And they talk about their schedule, there's only an 8% chance that they're gonna quit within 7 days, within a week. Okay, relatively small chance. When they talk about their manager, the number one reason why people quit, 1 in 5 of them are gonna quit within 2 weeks. And when they talk about training, there's almost a 50% chance that these employees are going to quit your workplace within the month. And so why does any of this stuff matter? Well, it matters for 2 reasons. One, if you can start to understand why your individual employees quit and correlate it with data, you can start to prioritize programs to do something about it. And that's the goal, right? Do something to help our employees stay longer. What's also interesting, though, is that in each individual one of our customers, again, we're working with over 10,000 restaurants across the states, their numbers look a little bit different. And so taking the time to understand what your specific employees care about can make a huge difference on your actual employee turnover. So I want to talk about wages here for a second. We're ripping through this fairly quick because we don't have a lot of time, and I want to leave you with some information that you can actually use. We've been able to get access through this work to proprietary insights on what people are paying across the country. And what we've been able to do is actually map out what the expected compensation hourly rate across the country looks like for managers, shift supervisors, cooks, baristas, and crew. You can see some of the numbers here. We actually put out a monthly report that breaks all of this down by geography, which you can download as well to get a little bit more information. But what we're seeing here is that consistent with the value managers provide, manager pay is continuing to rise. What does this mean? It means whether you like it or not, you're going to have to continue to invest in your managers. And the good news is they make a big difference on your frontline retention. Shift supervisors, we see kind of a similar trend, but we're starting to see cooks, baristas, and crew actually level off a little bit. Now, I know in certain markets, depending on where y'all are coming in from, minimum wage is rising, and that's actually driving some of this up. So take some of this with a grain of salt. These are national averages. If you want actually specific information broken out by your geography, you can just go to qsrwages.com, and we put out a monthly report that breaks all this out, broken into a couple of hundred different submarkets across the country, so you can get a comparable, 25th percentile, 75th percentile median where everybody stands. Now, we've gone over a bunch of data here. Some wage information, some information about what happens when you check in with an employee and whether or not they're going to stick around. But we wanted to leave you with a couple of tips, some actionable things you can actually do with this information to hopefully make an impact in your restaurants quickly, like tomorrow, next week, whenever you get back from where we are here today. The first is to automate that outreach to your employees. What we find is that by automatically checking in with your employees, instead of having to actually have each one of your managers sit down with each one of the employees and understand what they care about, you can save a ton of time and actually start focusing on solving problems rather than just identifying problems. The best GMs don't spend all of their time uncovering everything that's going wrong. They spend their time fixing the things that are actually going on wrong. And so automating the outreach to your employees via text message through an online marketing program can make a huge difference in your ability to do this at scale. How do you do it? Well, we also, shout out to Zach, work with a lot of folks in the Domino's community. And what we find is that when you're able to automate this outreach, you can have some pretty significant impact on the bottom line. These folks were actually able to drive down their turnover, reduce their cost per hire by keeping their employees longer, and ultimately driving referrals for folks in their network so they didn't have to spend as much money on the job boards. So it can be a huge, huge difference maker on the bottom line, reducing cost and what you're paying to both get people in the door and keep them. Second pro tip is use that feedback to drive your decision making. One of the big mistakes I see a lot of restaurant owners make is they spend the time understanding what's going on with their employees, speaking to their peers, understanding what they're doing, but they don't take the next step. And so our advice with you here is spend the time to understand what matters to your employees and then actually brainstorm the different things you can do about it and create an action plan. Using your employee feedback as your mechanism to drive innovation in your stores can be a huge, huge difference maker in terms of your people strategy. And we strongly, strongly encourage you to take the time to actually brainstorm that so you're not stuck in just problem identification mode. And the three is don't wait to start this process of understanding what employees care about until they start becoming an employee. Start actually with your candidates. When you reach out to folks who have applied to your restaurants, take the time to understand what matters to them. Candidates have more choices today than they have ever had before. When they go on Indeed, they're prompted to one-click apply to 5, 10, 15 different jobs at once. And if you're the one restaurant owner who takes the time to understand what that person is trying to actually accomplish, what they care about in a job, you will set the tone from the onset that you're an employer of choice. You're somebody who cares about them as an individual. And we find when our customers do this, they see their turnover numbers drop by upwards of 10%. Now, how do we know any of this? Well, the good news is we do some of these things for our customers. Spoiler alert, right? The second half of the screen, you can see we help with both recruiting and retaining hourly employees, primarily for quick service restaurants, but for folks across the restaurant community. And we do that, one, by providing a seasonal hiring boost, an applicant boost in the arm, where we reach out to former employees, past applicants, folks who've left on good terms, and an automated drip marketing campaign via text message to help you get over the hump. It's kind of a boost in the arm, right? It's not replacing your job board spend, but it might get you 3, 4, 5 new employees in the door so you can get to that safer operational position without having to spend too much effort. And then once they're in, we automatically reach out to these employees when they hit key milestones in their journey, like after their first shift, day 7, 14, 30, 60, and 90, to better understand what matters to these individuals, get ahead of common miscommunications, and help you get back in the driver's seat to know what's necessary to get them to stay as long as possible. When our customers do that, they see their retention increase by full package upwards at 27%. And so if any of this sounds interesting, we put out a report fairly regularly that breaks down all of these trends in a little bit more detail. There's a QR code actually on your tables now, the little postcard in blue. On the back of that, you could also scan it on the screen and get our trends and predictions report. When you scan this code and sign up for the report, you also enter to win 2 locations on HourWork for free for an entire year. So there's something in it for you as well. But the goal here is to, again, better understand what's going on the people side of the business so that you can actually do something about it. So again, my name's Jack Hanna. I'm here from HourWork. If folks have any questions, I'm more than happy to take them after the fact. Thank you.